Hello, welcome back to Library Says. I'm Jamie, and today we are going to talk about my top 10 least favorite books I read in 2019. I am not going to make any friends, probably, with this video. Just like with my top 10 favorite books I read in 2019, I'm going to count down from 10 to 1 being my absolute least favorite book I read in 2019. Now, this is, of course, my personal opinion. If you loved these books, I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for you. I wanted to love these books. That's why I read them. I never read anything that I think I'm going to hate. I always have hope, no matter what the reviews say, no matter if I have disliked their books in the past, that author, doesn't matter. I always go into every book hoping for the best. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for me with these 10 books. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with number 10, which is Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray. This one's tragic. I loved The Diviners so much. It shocked me with how much I loved it. It made it into my top 10 reads of 2019. And then I immediately jumped into Lair of Dreams. And it took me a long time. I don't actually remember. Several months to get through Lair of Dreams. We focused on minor characters from the first book that I was considerably less invested in, which is too bad because they were interesting characters in their own right. And had the writing done them justice, had they been developed a little bit more, I know I would have loved them as much as any of the characters in the original book, or the main focus characters in the original book. But I didn't. We also lost the horror element that was present in The Diviners. So this one, if you don't know, this is a spoiler if you haven't read past the first book in the series, but in Lair of Dreams, there is a sleeping sickness where people fall asleep and they don't wake up. So this book primarily focuses on Henry and Ling, who both can walk in dreams. That's their diviner power. And Ling is a biracial daughter of a Chinese immigrant and an Irish immigrant. And she also has a physical disability. So awesome. Such a great character. I wish I had cared about her more. And then same thing with Henry. He is gay. He is a jazz musician. And again, I should have loved him, but I just found myself not caring as much as I know I should have, and I wanted to. So all of the spooky, all of the scary from the first book, we really don't have that in this one. Instead, it's slow, it's a bit of a mystery, and we're trying to figure out what's going on with the sleeping sickness, and can we fix it? It hasn't even been that long since I read this book, but unlike The Diviners, which I feel like I remember in perfect detail, this one to me just felt like a slog to get through, and totally slowed down my momentum for the entire series. It took me so long to get through that when I did finish it and I did start the third book, which I liked considerably more, but my momentum on the series had been lost so much and I'd stopped caring as much as I wanted to. And so the third book, I gave 3 stars as well. Do I think I'll finish the series? Yes. Is it one of my most anticipated releases of 2020? Less so than I expected. So there you go. Take it or leave it. I didn't love Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray. Number 9 on this list is Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. I'm really not pulling any punches with this list. So I love some things Rainbow Rowell has written. Fangirl is one of my favorite books of all time. I did not love Carry On the first time I read it. I gave it 3 stars. Reading it a second time in preparation for this sequel, I liked it more, going in with lower expectations, and I gave it 4 stars. But I think it was a perfectly fine standalone. And when we start Wayward Son, it's just, why does it need to exist? I don't get it. A lot of people are complaining because the 2 main characters, Simon and Baz, their relationship that forms at the end of the first novel, they're on rocky ground in the second book, and so they don't spend a lot of time together. There's not a lot of coupley moments. That didn't bother me that much. Honestly, my issue is that it is just slow. It's absolutely plotless. Going from one random event to the next in a book does not a plot make. It's like, Renaissance Fair, how funny, let's make fun of that. IHOP, how ridiculous. And we just do random stuff like that throughout the course of the book. That's not a plot. And then there's a plot that gets thrown in the last 50 pages maybe. And at that point, yeah, I was interested, but it was way too little too late. And also, it's a depressing book. Everyone is suffering from trauma, and they're dealing with it. And I think that was done well. It was written well. Don't be misled by the cheery, colorful, illustrated covers of these books. They're a little bit more hard-hitting than you might think. but as someone who's read plenty of Harry Potter post-war fan fiction, it's not like I haven't read this sort of thing before and enjoyed it. But unfortunately, that was not the case with Wayward Son. I ended up giving it 2 stars. Number 8 on this list is Butterfly in Frost by Sylvia Day. Now, I have read her Crossfire series, which I would tell everyone is a well-written and intelligent answer to 50 Shades of Grey. So if that's something that might sound interesting to you, go check that out. This is not that. This is a very, very short book. It's a novella. It spends most of the time, most of its plot, trying to convince you it's nothing more than a sexy romp. And then it gets dark. Loss of a child, destruction of a marriage, lies, mental illness is sort of briefly touched on. And none of it's handled well. None of it's handled well. The couple gets together very quickly. It feels like 5 minutes. In the book, I think it's actually supposed to be just a couple of days. And they, 0 to 60, go from never having met to we can't live without each other, rolls eyes. Okay. And then we get, all caps, the twist. And the twist is absurd. The twist is unbelievable. The twist, in a different writer's hands or in a different story, could have been really interesting and well developed. In this book, it is not. I'm not trying to spoil you, so if this is something you want to read, go read it and then come back and tell me what you thought. So I'm not going to tell you what the twist is, but I will say that I found it egregious. I think it was meant to be a cure-all for the book's weaknesses, and it wasn't. And I frankly feel bamboozled in an artless way, not handled well at all. It was just cheap, lazy writing, and I'm not here for that. So go read Crossfire and skip this one. Gave that one 1 star. Number 7 on my list is The Daughter of the Pirate King by Tricia Levenseller. Now this one, for some reason, I put off for a long time. This is not a new release by any means. It has at least 1 sequel now, I think. But I know a lot of people really liked it, and I did not like it. This book is about Alosa, who is the daughter of a pirate, and she's sent on a quest to find a special ancient map, and then gets captured by her father's enemies, and then spends most of the book falling for the first mate. This felt like 2005 YA to me. It felt juvenile. I thought it was very poorly written. Yikes. Everything is told, nothing is shown. The insta-love is extreme. The characters are flat, 2D, never developed. I wanted Alosa to kick some pirate butt. I wanted her to be awesome. And I just didn't believe it. I didn't believe her. I didn't believe anything that she did. Maybe, we're gonna swerve for a second. I have a favorite YA pirate novel from when I was in high school. I think I read it the first time. It's called To Catch a Pirate. It's by Jade Parker. It does not have a very good rating on Goodreads, so take this with a grain of salt. But that's kind of my OG YA pirate book, and it's got some romance, it's got some adventure. I'm here for it. I have the original copy I've had for like 15 years. This book was not that, which it's not its fault. But go read that. That would be my recommendation. Go read To Catch a Pirate. Number 6 on my list is War by Laura Thalassa. Now this is a follow-up to a book I really enjoyed last year, Pestilence. This is about the horsemen of the apocalypse who have come to Earth. Each book is a different horseman and a different romance, essentially, that horseman has with a human woman. Pestilence was cool. I liked it. It was surprisingly good. War was a huge letdown. I actually read it on an airplane. I did a lot of reading on airplanes this year. Ooh, it's boring, it's plotless, the romance is wildly unbelievable, and the characters are all unlikable. So Miriam lives in Israel. That is where War, the horseman, is sort of campaigning, which I thought was an interesting choice of where to place this book, Israel. And we also spent some time in Egypt. As War campaigns, he burns cities to the ground, kills almost everyone except for the people he enslaves, and then raises the people he's killed to turn them into zombies, who then make up his army. So his army grows every time he kills people. So hearing what this book's about, you might think it makes sense that it's over 400 pages long. You'd be mistaken. This book is slow. This book is plotless. War destroys a city, kills everyone, raises them into zombies. He attempts seducing Miriam and fails. Destroys another city, kills everyone, turns them into zombies, attempts to seduce Miriam. Then she succumbs to his advances. Even though at this point he's still a mass murderer, he is in no way repenting for his actions. He continues to destroy cities, kill everyone, raise them into zombies. Meanwhile, he and Miriam are getting it on. They had decent chemistry, but their relationship and the build-up and the context for it all was so outrageous that the chemistry doesn't matter a whole lot. So this didn't rock my world. And I probably will try the next book in the series, but if it is more like War than it is like Pestilence, that'll be it for me, with possibly Lure of the Lost altogether. Number 5 on my list is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. I wanted to love this so much. Portal fantasy, a world where the written language literally transforms the world around it, a romance that happens between two people from a different world. There's a story within a story element. Why wouldn't I love this? Well, I did not. This isn't actually portal fantasy. There are doors to other worlds, but we don't really use those doors and go to other worlds. We hear about them, we learn about them. Mostly this story is a Bildungsroman, an examination of family dynamics, an examination of racial politics of the early 20th century. The main character, January, is a child, and she finds a journal detailing the encounters between a boy from another world who walks through into our world through a doorway and meets a girl, and their interactions over many years. That story in this journal that January finds was what I wanted this book to be. There was a portal fantasy element. There was adventure. There was mystery. And instead, we spend most of our time with January. We are mostly told and not shown the fantasy elements of the story. On top of all of that, the pacing's just not great. It is slow. I read this book over a couple of weeks, put it down at the exact halfway mark, read 6 other books, and then I came back, picked this one up eventually, and then finished it. It took me forever to get through it. And I'm usually someone who, if I'm liking a book, I book it right out. I book it right out. And this was not that. This was not that book. Number 4 on my list is 99% Mine by Sally Thorne. I am a fangirl for The Hated Game. I have reread it 3 or 4 times now. 5 stars. I love it. One of my favorite romances of all time, if not the number 1 favorite for me. So I was very excited, of course, for 99% Mine. Unfortunately, the characters are baffling in their actions and their choices, very unlikable, don't have any chemistry. They have a weird dynamic where are they like siblings? Are they into each other? Back and forth and back and forth. When they do get together, it was unbelievable. The dialogue is weird. The pacing is weird. The storyline is weird. The way it was done was a letdown. And I'm definitely not the only one who thinks that. So you can look up reviews aplenty. Bummer. But I am holding out hope that Sally Thorne's next book will be an improvement. Only 3 left, but I have to steel myself. These 3 are bad. And these are the ones that people are gonna come for me. Deep breaths. Number 3 on my list is Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. This one has been a bit of a phenomenon in the romance community here on BookTube, which is why I read it in the first place. Let's give you some context. Story time. My best friend and I are in Australia together last summer, and we do a lot of walking around, kind of hitting the streets. We decide to split a pair of AirPods and listen to an audiobook together. So this is what we chose. It was a blast. Not because we liked it, but because we enjoyed discussing, analyzing, and tearing it to shreds. So we went into this having read the synopsis, we knew the premise, we knew what it was about, and we were ready for it. In case you don't know, this book's about a girl who ends up falling for her boyfriend's dad. So, it's an age gap. There's a sort of cheating element. I was ready to rock and roll. This book does not deliver on its premise. Going in, I fully expected a love triangle between these 3 characters, and you don't get that at all. Instead, you get very easy outs for her and the boyfriend that clear the way for her and the dad. So Jordan is our main character. She's self-obsessed. She's wildly immature, which is funny because the book tells you over and over how mature for her age she is, but we never see any evidence of that. She has a passion for landscape design that we hear about a lot, but in no way plays any role in this book. But we learn about it a lot. A lot. Then we have Cole, Jordan's boyfriend. He's a douche. He spends most of this book not in the book. Then we have Pike, who is Cole's dad. He has a dumb name. He's a construction worker. That also doesn't really play a role in the book, even though we hear a lot about it. He has a really terrible relationship with his son that we don't ever really deal with, convenient, due to his words, psycho ex poisoning his son against him. That's great. I don't want to spoil it, but there is, like I said, something that gets Cole out of the way pretty easily, and then boom, in the clear. You'd think other people would find this whole situation sort of not great. Maybe people would be hesitant. That's not the case. Jordan has an older sister, and their relationship is one of the worst portrayed sister relationships I've ever seen in fiction. As someone who is very, very close to my sister, it was bafflingly bad. And her older sister pressures her throughout the book to give up on her dreams and to get with Pike so he can be her sugar daddy. Then we have all of Pike's friends, other middle-aged men. They're not middle-aged, so like in their 30s, but 30-something men who think the whole relationship is hilarious. It's a big joke. So because of all of this, no one has a problem with any of it, and therefore, it's not actually very scandalous, which is sort of the selling point of this book, based on what you think you're getting with the synopsis. So at least, right, Pike and Jordan must have a very compelling relationship. No, that's not there either. Pike treats Jordan like a child, which is maybe the grossest part of this book, because they are in a sexual relationship. He keeps trying to tell her what to do, second guess her every move. I don't have words for how icky that was. He really flips back and forth mentally between dude lusting after his new love interest and like father figure. So, despite this book being very, very long, there is zero plot. The relationship happens a little bit too easily, and then gives you icky feelings. And I guess not everybody, but me personally. Gave me lots of icky feelings. Number 2 on my list is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. This is another one that's been kind of a phenomenon. It's a thriller about a woman who has shot and killed her husband and then hasn't spoken a word since. It's been a few years, and she is in a mental hospital. And we are actually in the mindset, not of her, which would have been really interesting, but instead of a psychotherapist who takes a job in this hospital specifically to be able to work with the female main character, Alicia. And basically you're trying to figure out over the course of the novel, did Alicia actually kill her husband? Why? There doesn't seem to be a motive. Why has she stopped talking? And Theo, our psychotherapist, what is his role in all of this? The mental health rep in this book was terribly bad. I don't see a lot of reviews talking about this, but my best friend works in the mental health field, and so I made her buddy read this with me so that I could get her thoughts as we went, and she agrees. Terrible, terrible mental health rep. Woo! It does not do the field of psychiatry and psychology much in the way of favor. Just terrible. I think the author had a really cool idea with this one, but then couldn't execute it. The actual plotting and then the reveals are so bad. The therapist whose head we're in is boring, is uninteresting, is idiotic, and the book could have been so much better had we restructured it so that we were in Alicia's head or following her instead of Theo. I didn't find much of this very shocking. There is one twist at the very end that sort of reverses previous twists that I thought was, okay, that's pretty cool. But that does not make up a novel. And unfortunately, this is a novel-length story. That just didn't do it for me. So I gave this one 2 stars. All right, here we are, number 1 on my list. My absolute least favorite book I read in 2019. I'm in the minority. Parity by Colleen Hoover. I love some of Colleen Hoover's books. A couple of her books I would consider some of my favorite books of all time. This is not that. This is a thriller about a woman who is a failed mystery writer who is brought in to ghostwrite the end of a very successful mystery series written by another woman who's been in an accident and is incapable of finishing the series herself. We start by following our main character, Lowen, as she moves into the house with the writer, Parity, who is in a coma upstairs, like in a hospital bed in this house upstairs. Her husband still lives in the house. Her child still lives in the house. And Lowen, our main character, moves in to write the series, which is a bizarre way of getting us to a starting point for this story. No spoilers. It's going to be difficult for me to talk about, but I'm going to not spoil you in case you want to go out and read Parity, love it, and come back and tell me how wrong I am. A lot of people who seem smart or portrayed as being intelligent make a lot of nonsensical, bizarre, and baffling choices in this book to keep the plot afloat. Lowen, after moving into this house, finds a manuscript for what looks like a memoir written by Parity before her accident, chronicling how hideous of a human being she is. There is extreme child abuse. There is infidelity. Terrible stuff that Parity is saying in this manuscript she has done. We pad the entire length of Parity, the novel, with this manuscript, with Lowen reading it one tiny chunk at a time. instead of reading it all in one go or over, a couple of days very quickly, like a human being would do. She decides to read a chapter, and then a few weeks later she'll read another chapter, and then a few weeks later she'll read another chapter. And does she ever tell Verity's husband, who she's living with, about this? No, she does not. Because we have to build up the secrets and the lies, so there can be a huge shocking twist at the end. And then the big twist, the biggest twist at the end, made me... There are a couple twists at the end that were so absurd that I was literally looking around like, am I being punked? But everybody loves this book, so I'm clearly wrong, right? All right, I don't think I can really say anything else without spoiling it, so I do want you to go read it so that maybe you will also love it like everybody else. And I'm gonna wrap up my reading list here. Maybe you loved all 10 of those books. Maybe you hate me now. That's fine. I'm sure I love a book you hate. That's all for me today with my top 10 least favorite books I read in 2019. Let me know in the comments below, did you love these books? Do you agree with me on any of these points? If you have a similar video, let me know so I can check it out. I also have my links down below for Goodreads and for Twitter. I review all of the books I read in real time on Goodreads, so if you have any interest in seeing what I'm reading and what I think about it, that's the place. I'm also active on Twitter, which you can also find down below. That's it for me today. See you in the next one. Bye.